But it was driven by a donor's idea. And I think some of that, it might come from the clinic when we're in the clinic, or it might come from someone sitting across from you saying, how do we do this in horses? How do we do this in dogs? How do we do this in cats?
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Vetrospective. This is your host, Dr. Michael Kent. Today is going to be a little different. I've invited Dr. Carrie Finno here to talk about research. Now, I know we touch on research in almost every episode, but today we're going to the nuts and bolts of research and the impact it has. So, I'm director of the Center for Companion Animal Health, which is focused on dogs, cats, birds, rabbits, all companion animals except horses. Dr. Finno is my counterpart at the Center for Equine Health at UC Davis for all things equine. So Dr. Finno did her undergraduate work at Emory in Georgia, and then her veterinary school and her large animal internship in medicine at the University of Minnesota. She then did her residency in large animal medicine and her PhD in comparative pathology here at UC Davis. From there, she held a postdoc position at the University of Minnesota and then was hired as an assistant professor there before returning to UC Davis as a faculty member in equine genetics. Dr. Finno became the director for Center for Equine Health in 2016. She has mentored multiple undergraduate, veterinary students, residents, and graduate students, and has published over 140 peer-reviewed studies. Pretty cool. I could go on with the list of her awards and grants she has received and the list of her accomplishments, but then we wouldn't actually get to speak with her. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Finno.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Kent.
So before we dive into this topic of research, I like to ask this question: why veterinary medicine?
That's a great question. I always wanted to do something with horses. And when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a horse trainer, I think as many young girls do. And my parents very wisely said, if you want to do something with horses, maybe consider the medicine side instead of the training side. And so I got kind of set on an idea of being an equine veterinarian, but
How old were you then?
I was probably about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And I had no idea about research, though, right? Like when you learn that you're going to go to vet school, you want to go and treat animals. So my vision was I would drive around in a truck and be an equine vet. And then I got to school and I thought maybe I should be a surgeon. But that was an awful idea for me. I don't have that skill set at all. So I married one instead. But I got the chance to actually run horses on the treadmill during vet school. So my second year of vet school, there was a job opening with Dr. Stephanie Valberg, and it was to run horses on the treadmill. And I thought, this is the coolest job anyone could ever have.
Yeah.
No interest in research or genetics, and that's how I got involved in it all.
Running on a treadmill, or have the horses running on a
Definitely
treadmill.
Not me. That'd be
So
awful.
what kind of research were they doing running horses on a treadmill?
So Dr. Valberg studies inherited muscle disease in horses. So she actually had a herd.
I see the genetic link coming.
There it is. And I was awful. Like genetics undergrad, I got a C+. It was all flies and worms and not my cup of tea.
Drosophila.
I had no interest in genetics. But
or peas, right? Or isn't that Mendelian
definitely
genetics,
peas,
right? Peas, lots of
flowers.
peas.
Yeah. But when you apply it to horses and you have these families of horses with these inherited muscle diseases, it just made sense. It was cooler, and I got completely wrapped up.
And it was clinically applicable.
It was very clinically applicable.
Yeah. So I'm going to take us back and jump a little bit kind of broader picture. Why do we need research for society? In general, why do we need research? What is your perspective on this?
So I think the only way to push the envelope, right? The only way to discover new ways to diagnose diseases, to treat diseases, and I think for all of us to prevent diseases in the first place is with research. And whether that's, basic research that you think about in a lab with somebody holding a pipette, doing things in cells, or like we do where we treat animals with diseases and we see if that can help people, or clinical trials in people. There's all these different levels, but until you test those things and ask those questions, you can't move the field forward. And for all of us that have had ourselves or our loved ones with some illness or something where we just really were hoping there was a new treatment, this is the way forward.
No, it's I hear you, and it resonates well with me because I know, you, like I said, are a center director, and can you explain what the role of a center is within the university, like here?
Yeah,
What is this Center for Equine Health? What are your goals?
I mean, we are so fortunate. I know you and I have talked about this, right? To
Uh-huh.
have centers. So
Yes.
UC Davis is incredible in that there was the foresight to develop these species specific centers where the focus is to actually do research in the species we're supporting. So a lot of times we talk about translational research, right? Where we look at something in the horse, something in the dog, something in the cat that can help people. But a lot of us are really interested in doing research in horses for the sake of diseases in horses.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of funding for that, right? And so
No.
to have these centers where they are completely philanthropically supported and we can do that kind of research for the sake of the horse, the dog, the cat, the llama, the alpaca, right? But also a lot of it does translate to humans. It's kind of a, double bang for your buck, so to speak.
And you mentioned translational research. We also have basic science research and we have clinical research. Can you kind of explain what each of those are and how one can lead to the other?
Yeah. So each of those has a really important role. Right. So when we think of basic research, we think of fundamental questions, right? And in my case, in my lab, one of the things we're really interested in is vitamin E in horses
Yeah.
and also in people, right? And so how does vitamin E protect the nervous system? That would be a very basic question. You could take cells, you could take mouse lines, and you could try to figure this out. And then you've got the clinical question, right? And for me, that's why are there some horses that vitamin E deficiency completely impacts more than others? What's the genetics underlying that? So now we have a clinical question we can answer in horses. And then you take it a whole nother level, and there's people that have inherited genetic mutations that are vitamin E deficient, and they need very high doses to not develop neurologic disease. So now you have a disease in people that you've also studied in horses that started maybe way back when with mice and with cell lines.
And you need that basic mechanism to be able to figure out the problem and then how to tackle it. Have you found that the genes in people are the same, quote unquote, genes in horses?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about genetics, and my students will tell you I'll dork out on this a little bit, but there's 4 letters. There's ACTG in genetics, and every single species has the same letters. So we have
there's
the
only
same
4 of
genes.
them, right?
There's only 4, just
Yeah.
lots of combinations of the 4. But it's amazing that you can have a disease in people and that same gene is implicated in horses or dogs or cats, and you can learn so much. I mean, we can learn from humans, but they can learn from our species of interest too.
I was asked kind of an interesting question and something that I didn't really understand the question in some ways when it was asked to me by someone who was thinking if they should give money or not for research. And they asked me, how do you separate interesting from actionable research? What's your take on this?
That's a great question because I always say the research isn't complete until we bring it back to the pet owner, the horse owner, the veterinarian, whoever the end person is where there's going to be that impact. And that can be at a basic research level, right?
Yeah.
The who cares.
Yes.
You have to be able to answer it for every project you do. If I walk into the lab and I say, why are you doing this? Who cares? You need to have an answer for me and you need to have a target group for who cares. And if you can answer that, that's why you're doing it, right?
That's
and
actionable.
It may
in a
be
sense.
10 years, right, before you get a test or this, but you're on your way. Versus, I do think we all fall into that, right? As researchers, sometimes for you, it's so interesting and you get so involved in it. But if nobody other than you cares, right, you really should direct your effort into something that's going to help society and individual folks.
Yeah, when I first heard that, I went, well, a lot of times what I'm interested in is what I'm doing research on, but it may not be actionable yet because I don't know what the answer is going to be.
Right.
So sometimes you need to also do a little bit of the research to find out, is this a path we need to go down? And sometimes you have to flip the question or think outside the box in order to find out if it will be actionable too. I like your take on it, though. I think you were thinking of it probably more how she was.
The other side of that is when it starts in the clinic, right?
Yeah.
When you have
I see a problem.
you have a dog, you have a cat, I have a horse that comes in.
Exactly.
I can't solve that with the tools I have. So how do I go back to that basic science to answer that question? So I think you can bring it up both directions, but the who cares is really important.
No, it's essential. And this gets a bit more to the question of what we decide to fund given limited resources. So, you have a limited amount of money and you have proposals. How do you, I know how my center runs. How does your center run in deciding how you divvy out funds?
Yeah, so we, just like the Center for Companion Animal Health, we have a scientific advisory board. So we have a group of faculty, many are at UC Davis. We also have outside equine veterinarians that serve on that board. And they bring a lot of the who cares to the discussion. And we sit and we go through every single proposal. They're reviewed and they're scored, and then we discuss them. And the way we score them, so significance and innovation, right, that's important. But for us, impact actually carries the biggest score. And you could still have a study that's very basic science, but if you can answer that question, the impact in the clinic could be huge, right? So you're going to get a very high score on that because it is impactful, even if it's not immediate.
Yeah.
So, and having that outside perspective, I've had a lot of the equine vets that have sat on there and they said, well, the science, I agree with you guys, the science is really good, but we'll never use this. And for us, then that's not worth putting, right, this limited amount of money towards. We need it to be something that equine vets are going to use for their clients.
So now I had to answer for this for myself, and you decided to take the center director role on. I'm going to ask you why. You know, we all have our own clinic. We all have our own research projects we want to do. Like, it's not easy. You know, you've got to raise the funds. You've got to figure out the process to deliver it. You've got to push research agendas. So why are you doing it?
It's a great question, and there's two reasons. So one is I've been passionate about horses and research and pushing the agenda since I was 8, right? Since we said at the beginning, right? So that passion has been there. But as you said, it's a lot of work. And there is a degree of pay it forward in this profession. And I think that's across a lot of professions, but we feel it really strongly here, right? So I talked about Dr. Valberg as a mentor in vet school. When I came to UC Davis, Dr. Greg Ferraro was the director for the Center for Equine Health. And as a resident, I walked in and I asked for support to do a lot of projects. I was excited about research, and he supported me. He provided the enthusiasm, he provided the funds, and I just saw this incredible machine and opportunity, right, where you could push equine medicine forward. So Dr. Ferraro never asked a thing of me until he asked me to take the role of center director. And I couldn't really say no to that. So those two reasons.
I had a very similar experience with Dr. Peterson.
I know you did.
Yes. And he told me he couldn't retire until he found someone who loved the center as much as he did. And as a resident, when we were needing a linear accelerator, and all of a sudden I'm a second-year radiation oncology resident and deciding what linear accelerator is going into our new cancer clinic, and he was funding it, you know, and my first project that I did, I was doing research on looking at angiogenesis or new blood vessel growth in thyroid tumors. Guess where I got my funding? Center for Companion Animal Health. So I do hear that pay it forward thing, and I think one of the unique things about Davis is our funding, that we have this intramural funding that can help you start.
Yep.
You know, and you get to ask those questions. That actionable research, if it works, it's really going to work. But maybe an outside funding group in a really competitive area is going to go, that's a stretch, but sometimes the magic happens, right?
Yeah, we can do the high risk, high reward. And then we can make pilot data for those stronger grant applications, right? Sometimes you need a smaller amount of money to just get some data to say, hey, bigger granting agencies, this is worth putting your money towards. And we can do that here.
Can you give me an example of research in horses from your center where it's made a big difference?
So I think one of the fields we've been most impactful for is a lot of the infectious disease work on equine herpes virus myeloencephalopathy. So Dr. Nicola Pisterla is our...
So what is that disease first?
Yep. So herpes virus, right, in any species comes with a bad connotation, as it should.
Yes, as it should.
So in horses, this particular virus can cause either respiratory disease, it can cause abortion in pregnant mares, or the one we're all scared of is it can cause this awful neurologic disease in these horses. And it is highly contagious.
I was like, is that the one that could also jump to people?
That one can't, thankfully.
Okay.
Thankfully.
Good.
Venezuelan can,
Okay.
but not this one.
That one does not.
But this one is the one that'll shut down horse shows. So if
Okay.
there's one affected horse, there have been a lot of worldwide outbreaks. It effectively shuts an entire horse show down, which is millions of dollars. And you've got the risk of these amazing athletes now having a potentially fatal disease. So Dr. Pasterla really kind of led the game, I think, on a lot of this EHV1, as we call it.
And he's one of our faculty in internal medicine.
Yep.
So he's an infectious disease specialist.
Exactly. Equine internist.
Yep.
And all of the work he's done on biosecurity and how we would control for this and how we need to be careful about this actually came in handy a few years ago. There was an outbreak down at Desert Horse Park, which is the big facility in Southern California that has huge horse shows. And the CEO at the time of that facility reached out to Davis and said, right?
We have a problem.
We have a problem, and I don't know what to do about this.
Yeah.
And Dr. Pasterla, myself, Amy Young from our center, we all got on a plane. We went down there. We helped him manage it. We collected samples at the same time. We trained a graduate student.
And this is all because of the research that was done previously.
So it has made a huge difference in managing those and also educating folks, right, that have these horses that are exposed as to why we're there.
So I know from my center, donors really are our lifeblood. We're 100% funded by our donors. You know, we have no state money. We don't have university money. I mean, there just isn't that available. So I believe it's pretty much the same for you, right?
It sure is.
So why do you think people donate to support animal research?
I think a lot of people, if they've had, in our case, right, a horse that's experienced some disease that we don't know a lot about, and they've had that kind of personal interaction with it, they want to move the field forward, right? They want to have their horse's experience help the next animal that comes in. So I think that's a big piece of it. And then the other part that we have at the center, which is really unique, is we have 150 horses that live there. And they're horses that are owned by the university. They've been donated for a variety of reasons, lameness, some have neurologic disease, we have a horse with narcolepsy. I call them very lovingly my herd of misfits from time to time. But those horses not only teach the veterinary students, but they allow us to kind of examine some of these questions in horses that really at that stage had no other purpose for their owners, right? So we're a bit of a sanctuary for these animals, and yet we can do this teaching and this really integral mission. So in addition to the research, we have to support the 150 horses. And I always joke, my dad used to say when I was younger, he's like, you always wanted to have 150 horses. I'm like, well,
and now you do.
Now I do. So it's a lot. But protecting those herds and the value of those herds is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and you know that's where our centers are a little different. I don't have 150 dogs here. I might have 150 cats at home. No, just two, but and only one dog. But no, I think it's a unique thing again about Davis that we're actually able to support a sanctuary teaching group.
Exactly.
Yeah. And can you give me an example where a donor has really impacted your program? So what came out of their investment, basically?
So we can talk about the large farm we acquired.
That was my softball to you, because I was thinking Templeton Farms, and you could tell me what that is.
Was that amazing or not? I mean, it's so we actually, and it was from one of our alums.
You're glowing right now,
actually.
I
just love this part so much, right? So we had one of our veterinary alums who graduated from here who had a client down in the Paso Robles area who had decided that she was going to leave California and was thinking about selling her farm. And this vet, UCD grad, said, you know, what about considering potentially donating it to UC Davis, because we run an import program for horses and we could potentially have those horses down there.
And so the import program, I know that's a quarantine type facility. Why do we need that?
So that is actually from the federal government. That's USDA mandated that horses that come into the United States from other countries have to go through a quarantine to make sure they don't have any infectious diseases. And then the quarantine we do, we kind of lovingly call it the STD quarantine. It's for a venereal disease in horses.
Fair.
So it's for mares and stallions, and we have to test them and make sure they're negative, because if they were to get into the breeding population with that disease, it could be devastating.
Yeah. So back to Templeton Farms.
So we run that. And this particular donor had imported horses before. She had horses come through Davis, and she knew that
Yeah,
while
and we're in Northern California.
we're in Northern California, right? The
yeah.
horses come into LA, they have to come all the way up to Davis, and then most of them go back to Southern California. So the idea of having this farm and potentially using it for that purpose was tremendous. So they reached out to us a few years ago, and we drove out there. It was Associate Dean Pasco before his retirement, and myself. And I will never forget driving down the driveway. And this farm, I have never seen anything as nice as this farm. And I looked at him and I was like, if we don't make this work, and he just said, calm down. It's going to be a lot of steps. We might not make this work. And I said, we have to make this work.
And you did.
And we did.
And you did.
And it is so nice to have a footprint in Central California for our equine program.
No, I think it's pretty amazing. Now, I know your center, like mine, also helps fund equipment and research equipment. And so that may also get used in the clinic sometimes. I know, for example, you supported the first PET scanner for horses. So can you tell me a little bit about this? What's the process and what's been accomplished by your support of research equipment?
Yeah, the PET scanner is an amazing example. So for those of you that don't know about the technology, it's positron emission tomography. You probably talked about it here before.
I don't think yet, but
okay.
Anything with antimatter in it is way cool,
my gosh,
right?
Such a dork.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a radiation oncologist. What do you want?
No, true. So PET scanner, so a lot of us from, the human field know it for cancer, right? Is when you're looking for metastasis screens, you might get a PET scan. And they inject you with an isotope that labels certain cells, and then you can kind of image them. So for horses, there was a question many years ago of, could we do this as kind of a test of functional, right? You have a horse that's lame. We can get a CT, we can get an MRI. You might see some changes there, but there might be a lot of changes in which one is actually.
But are they significant?
Right.
Or do they mean anything?
Making that horse lame.
Yeah.
So if you have a marker that lights up, you could say, hey, it's right there. That's the problem. So Dr. Michu-Spurrier was actually the one that spearheaded that research and was looking for some initial pilot funding to see, could we take a human PET scanner, which is actually used for brains in people, could we anesthetize a horse and put their leg through it because it was big enough? And so we did. We were able to pilot that.
And it was a small portable one, actually.
Portable. Yep.
Yeah, that actually came here because of a study I was doing on dogs, and we didn't have a PET scanner yet. And this was a spinoff of someone from NIH, and this PET scanner was being developed to be portable to take it to people in nursing homes to look for Alzheimer's.
That's amazing, yeah.
And Dr. Spurrier walked by and he's like, hey, I could put a horse leg in that. I'm like, talk to him.
And he did.
And he did. But so you had this idea, or he had this idea and brought it to you. And I mean, I know it took hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And it was actually, Dr. Claudia Sonder was the director before me. She started it with Dr. Spurrier, and her and I talked about it. And she's like, I know this is a gamble, but if this works, and I said, if it works, it'd be amazing.
And has it worked?
And it's worked.
Softball question again.
Yeah. And now we've got a standing PET for horses. And now there are, I think, over 10 now within the world. But UC Davis was the first place to have this.
Well, and it was a human device that we brought back for horse use, which is pretty cool when humans are the guinea pigs for our patients, right?
Yep. Sometimes it goes in that direction.
We get asked sometimes if we're doing animal research, does that mean we're hurting the animals? And it's like, sometimes we use people as the guinea pigs, right?
Exactly.
And so how do you take an idea, something you see in the clinic? How does it become a project? How do you think about it? What's that process for you?
I think for me, a lot of it is actually really donor driven. I spend a lot of time talking to people that are really passionate about a topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my goal is to kind of matchmake them, right, as is yours, with one of our faculty that's working in that field, and see if that synergy together can bring a project
Does it
forward.
align? Yeah.
Yeah. And we have, the other example we have is the precision medicine project out at CEH. So we had a donor that I had this whole plan. I thought he wanted to fund stem cells. I had a whole proposal. I went in and he sat down and said, how do we do precision medicine in horses?
And you threw out your plan.
Threw out the plan.
and said, let's think about this.
Yeah. And so we ended up, I mean, that herd I told you about, those 150 horses, 100 of them have their whole genome sequenced and they have their microbiomes profiled. You know, we got a manure sample and looked at all the bacteria in their gut. They have their
Yeah.
metabolites profiled. So they've become this incredible, but they're even more valuable than they were initially, right? Because we have all this information on them. But it was driven
And you're now
by,
following them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we have longitudinal data, exactly.
Longitudinal, in other words, data over time.
Over time. But it was driven by a donor's idea. And I think some of that, you know, it might come from the clinic when we're in the clinic, or it might come from someone sitting across from you saying, how do we do this in horses? How do we do this in dogs? How do we do this in cats?
Yeah. No, I think sometimes we get so caught in our day to day, we may not think a little bit differently sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it just takes a little help from the outside. And it doesn't hurt if they've got funding to help you do it.
Yeah. You say, well, this is how we do it. This is what it would cost. And they say, done.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's just so powerful.
So, I mean, I hope we've kind of gone through a bit of the process of how we think about research, how we take something there and the importance of it, what it means for veterinary medicine. What else should have I asked you?
I think we touched on a lot of things. I think at the end of the day, you know, one of my favorite things to do is walk people around and introduce them to the horses that we have out at the center and talk about everything that we've learned from that horse and how it's changed what we're doing in the clinic and what we're doing with the next patient that comes in. And I mean, I can't say enough about the value, right, in being able to do that, to train veterinary students on actual horses that have certain conditions and then to also learn from those conditions, so similar to what we see in the clinic.
Yeah.
These dogs and cats coming in, and if we can treat it with something new and it's going to help across species and humans, hopefully too, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, or maybe something you learn in a horse we bring back to a dog, you know? These are, it is one health, right? It really is. We're many species, but really we share a very similar biology.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to ask me?
Oh, good. I get to turn the tables now. This is kind of fun for me.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like for CCAH has been maybe the biggest hurdle or the, you know, biggest challenge that you've overcome in the past few years?
Biggest challenge or hurdle we've overcome? That's a really good question. Now I'm stalling, right? You know, I guess our funding sources have always been the issues, and probably, you know, the need when we bring new faculty in to be able to help them start their career and start a new lab and making sure they have the resources to do it. You know, I want to make sure our next generation that comes in has the same opportunity I did, and that's not cheap. So trying to make sure we have the resources in hard economic times when we're not getting, you know, the same kind of campus or state support because the money's not there, we've got to find it. And that's been some of the challenge. I think part of the challenge also is, you know, what's our next big topic? What's our next big push? You know, we've had such success with our FIP treatment program that Dr. Peterson started, and now we've got a whole team working on the vaccine for it. And I'm always like, okay, this is our success. What's our next one? You know, our group's been working on trying to make monoclonal antibodies for dogs. And I literally sometimes wake up at night and I can't fall back asleep sometimes because I'm thinking. Last night I woke up and I had a dream that a friend's dog came down with hemangiosarcoma and that I had to euthanize it, which is pretty horrible, right? Yeah. And so I don't even know what time it is, but so now I'm thinking about the problem of that, because today I was meeting with some really lovely people who are helping fund initiatives on hemangiosarcoma. So now I'm trying to think of how do we treat this better, you know, and we've got grant calls out for it. So I guess the biggest problem is making sure we stay relevant, making sure we continue to fund the cutting edge resource, and that we still are able to come up with the resources to be able to support all the people here. And sometimes that's what I worry about.
Yeah, I think you and I have that in common. So,
yeah.
No.
Well, I really appreciate you spending the time with me today. And maybe we'll have to have you back to talk specifically about equine genetics.
Oh, I would love that. So
no, I would love that too. So Thank you very much.
Thanks for the invite.
The Retrospective, as with life, takes a village. I want to thank those who suggested I start this project and everyone who has encouraged and supported me along the way. Particularly, I want to thank our producer and director, Danae Blythe-Unti, Nancy Bay, who is our program coordinator, our sound mixer, Andy Cowett, and theme music was composed and produced by Tim Gehagen. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.